Micah Parsons is a unique talent, okay? And his speed is what makes him unique. And now he's not the biggest, strongest guy in the world, but he is the fastest guy in the world, if you will, especially when it comes to football. When you talk about a defensive end, outside linebacker, whatever you want to call them, that can outrun receivers, that's not supposed to happen. You know what I mean? And so his speed is the difference maker for him as a football player.
I'm living my dream. This Longhorn between two Tar Heel legends. Two Cowboys legends. Certainly Jesse Holley, Mr. Fourth and Long. Great Greg Ellis, who former first-round pick, a longtime Cowboys player, but also a person who has the unique tag of also being a player, but also being a coach. A lot of times, former players don't get to be coaches where they play.
Yeah.
And so you got a chance last year, certainly 2024 to coach for the Cowboys. Certainly your coaching career evolved. You started at Texas College, then you went to Southwestern Christian?
Southwest Assemblies of God.
Southwest Assemblies of God, and he had that itch to coach. And Mike Zimmer coming here as defensive coordinator under Mike McCarthy gave you the opportunity to coach. Just talk about coaching for the Cowboys, living that dream of being able to do that with the Cowboys last season.
Man, for me, it was truly a blessing. When I say it was a blessing, because what you already said, the opportunity to play for him was great, but then to be on the other side of the team that you played for so many years in the coaching capacity. So it was a very unique opportunity for me. But I had to get my heads out of the clouds really quick because, I had demands that had to be done, duties that had to be fulfilled as an assistant defensive line coach. And so, but it was unique to be on the other side of it.
Greg, we talk a lot of times about different generations, right? You have the guys of the yesteryears, you have the generation that you played in, and then now you're coaching and you coached in a generation of the new kids.
Yeah.
Right. What was some of the, I guess, what were some of the challenges of trying to tap in to this new level of kids and athletes and, because some you talk about NIL deals now, right? Some of these guys walk in and they're already $6, $7, $8 million, above than what they normally would be coming into the league. So they have this entitlement, right? You can't talk to them a certain way because they kind of go into a shell. So what were some of the difficulties of trying to coach? Because you come from the old school. You come from the old school, and you were part of some old school coaching, some old school teams, to now in the current 2024, 2025 version of athletes.
Man, that is a loaded question, bro. And, it's a combination of things with the collective bargaining agreement, the rules change and what can be done in practice and what cannot be done during the off season. Like when I was playing, dude. Exactly. Now, you had times where you couldn't put on your pads during those OTAs and stuff like the minicamp stuff, but you might as well had your pads on.
Right.
Because, guys would come up, shoulders all bruised, all up. But nowadays, that doesn't go on. You know what I mean? It's like 1 or 2 steps, and that's pretty much it. You can't have contact with each other. And I'm like, okay, how are we supposed to get this done and know what we're working with? Because you can't do certain things. But in the big grand scheme of things, it's frustrating to some as a coach, but you have to realize the longevity. A lot of us, and myself included, we have some issues because the way we used to practice, to be honest with you. And so I do think it's smarter and better for the game and for the players with not having as many contact practices as we used to have. So I do agree with that. But it is challenging because we used to make jokes about guys coming into the NFL taking a pay cut from college, but now that's real.
Right.
You got guys that are coming in, a 4th round pick, and he's like, man, I was getting more money in this in college, right? And so to be able to reach a guy like that and keep them, going can be very challenging, if you would. And how you talk to them, you have to approach them the right way, if you would, And so it elevates and forces players, if they want to be good players, to take more responsibility of ownership themselves, meaning I'm not going to dog cuss you because I really can't these days, but the expectations, if you don't produce, they're still going to cut you. So that hasn't dropped. You still have to produce out here, but I can't be in your ear the way coaches were in the when I came in, late 90s, early 2000s. But you better produce, or you still gonna get going. You know.
I'm sure you laugh when they complain about practice. Like, well, y'all ain't.
Oh, dude, I'm sitting there like. So when I first get there, man. So as you guys know, last year was my first year, you know, coaching in the league, and I've been around it some. You know, Zim used to have me come up and be around his guys, but for us full time, day in and day out there, I'm looking around. I'm like, okay, where are the cameras that's going to come out and saying, Greg, you just got punked?
Yeah.
Because I'm like, this can't be practice. Yeah. Nobody can tell me. And I remember talking to Mike McCarthy one day. It was either a breakfast or lunch. And this was during the season. I said, you know, Mike was a good kind of relationship guy and want to sit down and eat with you, the coaches and all that stuff. And so I guess this was his turn to sit down and eat with me and Pecco. Remember Pecco? And so we're talking, and I'm opening up to him because, you know, I feel like, okay, we all opening up to each other. And I was like, Coach, when I first got here, man, I thought that you wouldn't allow the guys to really practice hard. And he was like, no, it wasn't me. I was like, well, now I know it wasn't you because it's just the rules that are in place. Right. Because I was like, this cannot be right. And I'm looking around like, what the heck is going on? What? That's all they can do. They can't. How do you know what you're working with? You know what I mean? Right. So you are right, man. It is an extremely challenging situation, and it's just adjusting, making the adjustments. But again, it's easy to look at it from the players and say, man, hey, they got it made, and they do because they don't practice hard as we used to have to. Right. But like I said, in the business side of it, you have to be more disciplined as a player because if that productivity is not there, dude, you're going to get cut.
You know, I'm glad you brought up Mike McCarthy because that's where I want to go.
Yeah.
Just talk about the pressure on the staff. You going in last year, everybody on 1-year deals.
Yeah.
You know, not knowing what your future like. You going in your first year as a coach and there's no guarantee. You know, how tough it is on the staff with no safety net. You know, this was it. Everything is on the line on this year. And you could lose everybody injured and your future's uncertain.
Yeah, and it is a distraction. I would have to say that, in my opinion, because and Mike McCarthy used to tell us, hey guys, I'm not worried about what comes next. We owe it to this franchise to do and be in this moment. Mm-hmm. And he said all the correct words.
Well, it's easy for him to say, your career is done. You don't want a Super Bowl. You know, your legacy is made.
Exactly, right? We're like, well, it's like, I'm just getting started coaching the NFL. I'm trying to, you know what I'm saying? And so, yeah, it was frustrating because, again, for me, it's like 1 year and now you're gone. You know what I mean? But so, yeah, and it was frustrating for a lot of other coaches. It was a lot of pressure, and pressure is okay. It comes along with the job, but it's just not how it typically goes. Right. And typically, now you may have a player that's on that last year that says, you know what, I got to step it up and I'm going to do X, Y, and Z and, you know, whatever it is to help me, as we call it, the contract year.
Right.
But as a coach, you can't, stepping it up is a total different thing. I mean, what am I going to do? Stay 22 hours as opposed to 20 hours at the office now?
Right.
You know, it's not really going to make a difference like that. Coaches stepping up is more of a long-term thing, meaning that we got a 2, 3, 4 year plan here. There is no 1 year plan. You know what I mean? So it's like, what can I do in this 1 year? How do I move forward without knowing, okay, we're doing this year, but it's going to help us next year? If you don't have the ability to say that and to work in that environment, you know, it's almost unfair in my opinion.
You know, you spend a year with the Cowboys. What is one thing that you can go back and say, one, Greg Ellis learned this, and one thing that Greg Ellis wants to improve on as a coach?
Oh, man. That I learned a lot of things. I learned the importance of coaching and reaching the guys, the importance to understand the more you can relate to your guys and they relate back to you, the more you get out of them, if you would. And this, I heard Mike McCarthy say this, and I have adopted it. People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. I think I said that right. And that's definitely true. And so you first, to be real with your guys, they respect that. And I respect that when I was a player, coaches who were real with me, not just doing a whole bunch of yelling just to be yelling. It's like, dude, what are you yelling at? Because you don't even know what you're talking about. And I've had people like that, and that's very frustrating. But if you're yelling and you're getting on me and you're right and there's evidence to support what you're saying, then, hey, you my dude. But those are ones that just yelling to be yelling. I'm like, come on, man. You're doing too much, bro. So I've learned the importance of that right there. And what was the second part you asked of that?
The second part was, what's one thing that you would change?
Change.
As a coach.
As a coach, changing. I would like to see guys be able to do a little more in practice. I would like to see them. I mean, I think some of the stuff we did was excessive, but I do think, there's a fine line. And I think we can do more in practice. But here it is. It's a contradictory situation because when NFL gives that green light to coaches, okay, here you guys can do this, here. Like you can do one-on-one pass rush drills. But then you have coaches that want to push it to the limit.
Right.
It's like, dude, they don't have pads on. They don't even have helmets on. But, you yelling at this defensive guy because, he didn't knock this guy on his butt with a speed to power rush. It's like, well, man, they don't got pads on. You know what I mean? And so I do get that and understand that. Like some of the stuff we did was not smart, to be honest with you. It's like, well, we don't have pads on. That doesn't mean keep practicing at the same tempo and getting bruised all up. It's like, what is the point of that? You know what I mean?
Right.
So, yeah. So I would like to see a little bit more, but it's difficult. So NFL, don't change it. Don't say Greg Ellis said change it because I get it. I really understand. It's difficult, and you got to kind of be so black and white with it.
I don't want to keep you too long, and I appreciate you certainly being here, Greg. Just a couple of things that I have. Your impression, two things. Your impressions of Micah Parsons.
Okay.
And also Brian Schottenheimer, the new coach of the Cowboys. What did you learn about him, and what's your impression of him, and think the job he's going to be able to do?
You make sure you remember the second part because I don't have the best memory.
That's right.
So let's go here with, I think the first one was Micah Parsons. Micah Parsons is an amazing person. And here's what I would say.
I'm glad you said person because a lot of people think he's a bad guy because he does podcasts. They love him as a football player, but he don't pay it. He's not focused. Can you just talk about
Well, now the NFL is a different thing. It's a different thing now.
Right.
The world is different. Social media, podcasts, and all that stuff. That's part of it now, and so you can't jump on him or judge him because he does a podcast. In my opinion, it is. It's in. I wish I'd have known that when I was playing. To be honest with you, for myself, I think a lot of guys, pass rush guys, Bill Parcells knew that, I believe. But I think a lot of us, when you're not that big, bulky, 300-pound defensive end kind of cat, and, you're more leaner, but you're still dealing with somebody who's weighing 350 pounds, there's no other way. It has to wear on your body. It has to wear you down, right? And it shows up later in the seasons, in your season, to be honest with you. And so you have to be smart. The problem is, you realize how important each game is. And so your intent going into that season may say, okay, we're going to rest Michael some. We're not going to give him as many reps early on. But when you get in the heat of the battle and you're like, dude, we need –
Go get him. Go get him.
And so, it's hard to not to do that. But hopefully, they're in situations this year where they – and you know it and y'all know it, so I'm pretty sure those coaches know it as well because we knew it, and it was something we talked about. But again, when you in the heat of the battle, it's like, brother, go get him, Michael. You know what I mean? So, yeah, it is something. What was the second part?
It's shoddy. I mean, he's a good coach, and certainly I like Mike McCarthy. I thought 12-5, 12-5. I don't think he got enough credit for the job he did, and certainly I don't think it was fair how things laid out last season, but he's gone, and now Schottenheimer is the new coach, and just your impressions of him and the job you think he can do with this team?
Well, he comes from a pedigree of head coach, so he grew up around that. He know what that looks like, and he's been in the league forever as an assistant coach, and so he knows what it looks like. My anticipation is that he don't change a whole bunch of stuff, because McCarthy was there and he had to adapt with some of that. Even if he may come out and say, "Oh no, we're going a different direction," all that kind of stuff. I think you're still going to see some of that surface in their program this year. I like him. I think he'll be good for the Cowboys. We got to give him a shot. Understand, this is first, big time head coaching job. Cowboys is a huge stage, and we all know that. And so if he don't come out and win the first preseason game, we're gonna be ready to fire him and all that kind of stuff. But we got to give him a shot. And I think he has a good as an opportunity as anybody to be successful at being a head coach in the NFL. And so I think he'll do okay.
All right, we'll leave you with this last question. And we get it. It's July.
Mm-hmm.
Football's fluid.
Yeah.
Things change.
Mm-hmm.
But is this the Cowboys' year? Do they get over the drought, the 30-year drought? Do they have more playoff success? Are they Super Bowl contenders?
That is the number one question that gets asked every year about the Cowboys.
Yes.
Is this their year?
It started when you got here, though.
That's what it's
because I was here. I mean,
really?
It's been ever since. This drought started in 97.
So, exactly, right? And so, dude, you know what, man? Be optimistic. Mm-hmm. And we're optimistic as Cowboys fans. And so every year we look and, we got this piece, that piece, this coach, whatever. And, we say, hey, this is going to be the year. Mm-hmm. So maybe if I switch it up and don't say this is going to be the year, maybe it actually will be the year. But I would say this, that, they have some good pieces. Mm-hmm. And we're not so far down at a position that it's considered a true weak link mm-hmm. that will stop us from winning football games. We may not have the best pieces at every position, but I think we have respectable pieces that should be able to maintain and that we can win with. I do think and believe that.
You heard it here. Greg Ellis said, Cowboys going to the Super Bowl this
There
year.
we go.
And the Tar Heels.
We're going to the college football playoffs, baby. Let's go.
That's another story in itself, that coaching situation. So,
I got Belichick.
Yes.
Yeah, well.
We can keep you all day.
I know.
Yeah. I got to go.
Yeah, we won't.